Hello, and welcome to a quick video playthrough of Team Wombat Kombat's paper prototype of the Water Nixie. To start the game off, select one player to be the Nixie, and the rest of the 2 to 4 players to be the children. Set the church tile where the X is on the playing field. The children then set their pieces on the corners of the church tile as marked by the black dots. The Nixie then places their piece on the church part of the church tile, which is indicated by the cross. Each tile is made up of 9 spaces. The only spaces that can be traversed are the brown path spaces. The children start off the game with 2 tiled cards in their hand, as well as 2 child powered cards in their hand. The Nix starts out with 5 Nix cards in their hand. The child to the left of the Nix goes first. The victory condition for the children is to collect mirror shards by building and exploring the map, while avoiding the Nix. And the victory condition for the Nix is to capture 2 children. A child's turn goes as such. First they roll a 6-sided dice, to which they can move that many spaces. When a child gets to an edge of a tile piece, they can either choose to place a tile down from their hand, or to place one from the top of the tiled deck. Whenever they place down a tile, the child then draws a card from the child power deck. Once the child is done moving, they can then use one of their child power cards. However, once a child uses a power card during their turn, they can no longer move even if they had movement left. After they're done using their power card, their turn ends. The Nix skips their first turn to allow the children to have an extra turn to get some distance at the start of the game. Until the Nix has had their first turn, no mirror shards can be played by the children. This child tried to do so, but ultimately had to take it back. The child instead chose to put down a comb power card, which allows him to place a mountain token in a space adjacent to him. Mountains stay on the field for 3 of the Nix's turns since the mountain was played. Nobody can pass through these mountain tokens, whether they be Nix or child. Now on to the Nix's turn. Their turn functions pretty similar to the children's turn. However, they roll an 8-sided dice instead of a 6-sided dice. On their first actual turn, they can only move up to 4 spaces depending on their dice rolls. So if they roll a 6, 7, 8, or 5, they can only move to a max 4 spaces still. The Nix chose to give this child the debuff called Frostbite, which is one of the Nix's abilities. The player he targets takes a -2 penalty off their next 2 movement rolls. However, they can always still move a minimum of 1. The Nix also has an effect to where if he moves less than 4 spaces in a given turn, he can use their second ability card that turn, as you saw him do. The ability he cast was Fog, which allowed him to switch 2 tile pieces on the map. The tiles he can switch around can be placed in any orientation he chooses. The paths do not have to connect, and he can also move any tile regardless of what objects are on top of it, except the church tile. The child here plays the mirror shard power card. When the power card is played, the mirror shard is put into a collective pile of other mirror shards. The Nix here decides to give chase to the player with the red dice. The Nix chooses to use the power card axe, which lets him destroy the mountain tile the child just placed. The orange child just now used the power card called Map, which lets them search through the top 3 cards of the tile deck. They can pick one of these cards to put in their hand and shuffle the rest back into the deck. The child here chooses to use his secret path power, which allows him to jump up to 2 tiles away into the middle of his selected tile. The Nix then decides to go back to the church. He could have either walked there or teleported there. Upon reaching the church, the Nix may discard any amount of cards from his hand and then draw up to 5 cards. However, in doing so, he may not use any action cards this turn. A few turns later, the Nix finds himself using the power card Fog, bringing the children closer to him. As the children started to fan out. The red player uses his power card Treasure Chart. This allows them to draw the top 3 cards of the child deck. He may pick one of these cards and then put it into their hand and shuffle the rest back into the child's powers deck. Unfortunately for the child, the Nix rolls an 8. To capture a child, the Nix only has to either land on or pass through the child. Upon capturing the child shuffles all their cards back into their respective deck, and the Nix gets to draw 3 cards from his power deck. The Nix begins to give chase. He uses his Fog power card to bring the child closer to him, as well as make it so he doesn't have to cut through the mountain or wait for the mountain timer to expire. The child ended up being able to run away, and unfortunately had another comb to put another mountain behind him. However, the Nix had a axe power card, which let him cut through the mountain that the child had just placed. At this point in the game, the children have 3 mirror shards collected, and only need to collect 1 more to win the game. However, Nix has already captured 1 child and only needs to capture 1 more to win the game. The Nix decided to return to the church to stock up on more power cards. He discarded 2 of his cards, and then he drew up to 5. However, the Nix wasn't fast enough, and the child ended up getting the last mirror shard that they needed to win the game.